yeah, Ryan, cheers to you for sacrificing your life to the streamer ties, man. I've tied like 3 different patterns, and that's what I stick with, So filling up Dave's boxes is no light order, that's for sure.
It's not.
Hashtag
Luckily,
meat life.
Yeah, luckily I had a ton. Hey, dude, check out this whole plethora of sitting around drinking a couple beers, flies that I've had. Do you like any of these? You know what I mean?
I'm like, I like them all. Box them up.
Perfect. Here we go.
Yep.
It's just fun. I like the experiment, man. You see a pattern come out or whatever, just tie it up, change the colors up a little bit, see how it works in your water.
Yeah, I've been real big on yellow this year. That's kind of been my go-to color for a lot of patterns, and it's been fishing well. And I think a lot of that, just stems from the big populations of brown trout in the Arkansas in certain spots, and I think they key in on those pretty quickly.
Oh yeah, yellow is good. Up here, we do really well on white.
Mm-hmm.
So white's their color up here, but yeah, I definitely like browns, yellows, all those. Sometimes green, man. You could go out with yellow one day, nothing, start throwing green, start picking them up. The next day it'll be the opposite. It's weird.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I love the days when they start picking up on like purple and blue, and you're like, all right, so all of my thought processes just went out the window.
Exactly. Yeah. Like when you can't catch anything, but you throw a size, 20 purple zebra midge. Now they all want that. You know what I mean? But they don't want the naturals.
Yeah, it's wild.
Just when we think we haven't figured it out.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as figuring this game out.
No, thankfully. I mean, we would all be bored at this point if we did.
That's true.
Very true.
That's what I love about fly fishing. It's a never-ending. You're never going to stop learning. There's no master of fly fishing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, just the other day, I figured out that a Baetis was a BWO, and that was like a big breakthrough moment for me.
Really?
Hell yeah.
Dude, Baetis
wait a second. These are the same bugs. Okay, I gotcha.
Now, who taught you that? Was that one of those guides you were fishing with?
Nah, it was fucking YouTube. I was watching the new Umpqua series, and they were like, how do you piece together a Baetis box, right? And I was like, I should probably figure out how to do this. And then I get 30 seconds in, I'm like, oh, so these are all the BWOs and like, your Baetis and all that. I don't know.
It's all just one bug, and they just modified the shit out of it.
Yeah, exactly. You change the thread color, and it's a completely different species, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
That's like me and streamers. The only streamer name I know is Sex Dungeon. Other than that, they're just streamers. I just throw meat.
Is that a
I don't care what they're
with
called.
or without rubber legs?
Exactly.
Does it have a deer head or
why does this one have a cone head? That's weird.
Yeah.
So it's a cone head mini dungeon is what this is, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
With or without flash. It's up to you.
Yeah.
Everything's optional.
So you guys get a pretty good BW hatch down there?
Down here? There can be some pretty decent hatches, like definitely in the springtime, but a little bit towards like the headwaters, I think it's a little bit bigger. We have a really awesome Mother's Day caddis hatch.
Oh yeah,
I've heard of that.
That a lot of people fish, and that's the time of year when it's like, all right, we are making the switch from midges to dries, and that's no going back at that point, which is great.
That's huge on the Arkansas, and it's usually a little before Mother's Day. I think they call it like the tax day hatch. Some people too, because it's closer to the tax deadline.
If the weather patterns keep changing, like they so predictably have been, it could be the Christmas Day caddis hatch.
That's what I'm wondering if we're gonna even have a fall and winter. I mean, it's just like we haven't had any rain since early June, like before.
Damn.
So
yeah, that's dry.
Yeah,
getting old.
Cool. So you've been doing some research, man, getting your boxes together and stuff. So with that being said, how do you go about like doing research and stuff on the rivers that you're gonna go out to, or do you just kind of show up and play, or do you do any research in the background, or how do you do it?
Honestly, not really. If I do any sort of research, I usually try to pick out some people who fish those water. You can reach out on Instagram and stuff like that. It's kind of like my biggest communication line is just reaching out to people on Instagram and seeing what they think.
Yep.
I'm definitely not like a spot beggar, right? I'm not like, hey, where'd you catch that fish? Give me the exact GPS.
Thank you
can
for
you
that.
drop those coordinates in my in the chat? Appreciate
Hey,
it.
hey, when you guys say it that way, that really makes me feel bad. I mean, look bad. I mean, I am bad. Don't be putting down us people. Some of us, that's how we roll.
Yeah,
That's how Gary and I met.
have definitely watched
He asked me
Gary
about where I caught that
steal.
fish.
I've watched
Well, that
Gary.
was combat fishing day.
Yeah, I've watched Gary
Yeah,
step
exactly.
into a hole a guy was fishing, just to fish in front of him.
Was that the time he went with me?
That
a whole
was
different-
Mike.
That was a whole different.
That
deal.
was Mike on the corner.
Had nothing to do with fishing. That was a personality gig. That was
That's
not
funny.
my fault. He'd been sitting on a rock for half an hour to try and tie a knot.
Good point.
I got tired. The fish, we all got tired of it. That was a whole different deal.
Exactly.
Comparing that. No,
So
as a
I
matter
have-
of fact, I was gonna say this weekend cost me 2 beers to get information. So
Hey,
people
there
can
you go.
talk-
At least you're paying, the toll, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Right, right.
That was to his wife. He's like, "What should I put on, honey? Give me a beer."
I would love to get mad at you, but I got shit at work, so
True. Right.
I can't be, other than shut up and yes, it works. So
Yeah. Right.
Nice.
So Lance, you
Cool.
got a trip to Pyramid coming up. Have you done any recon on that? If so, what have you learned?
I have done a little bit of my due diligence on the upcoming pyramid trip. I'm pretty excited for that. I have a friend, her name's Ashley Straub, and she went out to Pyramid a couple years ago with the Pig Farm Inc. guys. And so I kind of shook her down for the info, and she passed along a lot of really encouraging words like expect 8 hours of staring at your bobber before you see that thing do anything. And there's a great chance you probably won't catch anything. So I'm fueled up and ready.
Excellent.
Yeah, but
So-
I have been tying some flies up for it. I've been getting some rods together, and
What are you tying up?
So I've got some balance leeches. I did some double dipped chironomids, kind of like those little 2-bead styles.
Nice.
I made some of those popcorn beetles with a little bit longer of like a tadpole tail just to see if that works. But I'll probably bring everything and end up using like one fly the entire weekend.
Yeah,
that's how it goes.
Yep. Exactly.
So I had a question for somebody that's never been or never really done any research. What is so big and so like that pulls everybody into Pyramid? What is so special about Pyramid?
I mean, I think other than the gigantic cutthroat, I think it's it's one of those like, what do you call it? When you make the commute basically to some foreign place you've never been, it's like this huge soul-searching adventure movie.
It's a pilgrimage, man.
Yeah, pilgrimage, exactly,
It's
right?
a pilgrimage.
Yeah, you
For
got to
huge
make that
cutthroat.
pilgrimage to stand on that ladder. I mean, that ladder is not going to be stood on by itself, right? So I don't know. I mean, other than that, I think it's just, a cool destination in the US that people get to kind of explore. And for what it's worth, I mean, it's a very unique fishery too. Those Lahontan's have a very deep rooted past, and the care and conservation and restoration that went into sustaining those populations. I think it's a really cool success story of how people and the land can work together to create something that's like truly magical, right?
That's
I mean,
awesome.
those are
Because
big fish.
like I said, I've never been in there. I haven't had a chance to really do a lot of research. I'm really not that far from it. I think last time I checked, it was maybe less than 10 hours.
That's not bad.
And all that. So I got a couple buddies that go down there quite a bit. And so I'm always curious. I mean, everybody says there's monster cutties and
Monsters.
and all that. And I'm all about catching fat kids. I mean, dude, I love big fish. It's just like it'd be hard for me to sit there, especially because you said it's a lot of indicator fishing, and so I would go absolutely nuts. And it's just like I'm especially being a streamer guy, I'm constantly moving, and so now with your research you did, can you float it, or is it everybody just stays in the shooting lanes? Because I have seen where they have like the shooting lanes and everybody sits on the ladder and waits for them to circle by and do that. I mean, is it pretty successful floating it, or is it just staying in those feeding lanes?
Yeah, I've seen people out there on boats pulling both, like Rapala style fishing and fly fishing too. And I think it's, it really just depends on where the schools of fish are in the lake, and it's all just kind of a waiting game of when one decides to swim by and maybe the wind kicks up a little bit and adds some chop to your fly. And I don't know. I totally agree with you though. I think the indicator part of it isn't the most attractive, but because I'm the same way. I mean, anytime I'm streamer fishing, I basically just walk down the middle of the river, pound a bank, move another 5 feet, like typical streamer fishing, right? So we'll see how creative we have to get on the ladders to entertain ourselves. Maybe we'll bring some sea shanties along or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no kidding, kids. I mean, we have a crap load of cutties here, and
Yeah.
I love chasing cutties because they're just a bunch of assholes. They're not like your standard sit back, hey, I'm just your lazy rainbow. It's just like they love movement. They love freaking anything, and they'll eat. They don't care if they're the same size as them. They'll still go after it and stuff. So it kind of sounds like these ones with them being in the lake and stuff, because they might have that little. I mean, we all know once the fish gets past a certain size, they're just lazy as fuck. I mean, they really are.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to pretty much just serve it up like a McDonald's drive-through for them to take it and stuff. So
This is true.
and that's the only frustrating about big fish. I mean, it's just like, have you fished there before? Or is this gonna be your first trip?
No, this will be my first trip.
Are they?
So-
Does anybody know? Are they fighters, or are they like the typical? Oh, we're big fat. We're gonna freaking pull for 30 seconds, and then you're gonna drag a log in.
I mean, I would assume that they would be pretty lazy, but I don't know. I mean, if there is a ginormous cut that puts up a fight at the end of your line, I mean, that's a wild ride, right? And
Yeah. I mean, you're
So,
looking
I
at like
mean-
steelhead status right there. Then I mean,
Yeah,
it's
There's
like,
for sure.
because that's what we deal with. Is everybody here chases steelhead and salmon, and it's just like I love seeing the fights because you can definitely tell when somebody hooks a salmon because they just freaking bury it to the bottom, and you're pulling a rock. But man, if you get a fresh steelhead, holy shit, you better hold on because he's gonna freaking run you.
Acrobatics.
Yeah, and it's just like it's awesome. And some of the waters that I fish, we have a strand of rainbow steelhead mix, and I love hooking into those things because they will run until you put them in the net. There is no end to them.
That's awesome.
So
Have you talked to your buddies that go out there, Rob? Do they ever fish streamers, or are they not meat guys?
So I've talked to Red Truck. He goes out there with quite a bit, and he throws a lot of what you're doing, doing the balance leashes, the indicators. Another guy, he did, I've talked to him a couple times, does about the same thing, and run it out there. Chuck is he's a guide down there in the Sacramento area and goes over quite a bit. And it seems like everybody does that. So I'm really curious, like when you're up on that ladder, chuck a streamer out there, because I know the cutties around my area, especially in if it's still water or if it's in like some kind of lake where there's a river that comes in and out of it, they love movement. And even if it's just a little bit, just chuck it out there and move it in. I'm really curious about seeing your story and getting feedback from when you get back, because I'd be that guy out there chucking streamers on top of
hell
this
yeah.
ladder, and freaking everybody else is probably looking at me like, what in God's green earth
What
are
is
you
this
doing?
dude doing?
Yeah, because I mean, it's just a natural thing, especially for cutties to strike, and it doesn't matter if they're hungry or not. I mean, I've pulled freaking big trout out of like places where they shouldn't even be eating, and they've chased my streamers. And it's just
I
all
haven't been there
natural action.
before either, but I've heard, and I don't know if it's true, that the fish are kind of in pods and they will kind of circle around the lake.
Yeah.
So that's why you're sitting there watching for so long, because they're on the opposite side of the lake. But when they come over and they're swimming in front of the ladders, as soon as I see one or two people hooking up, I'm going to throw my streamer
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
see
for
if
sure.
see if it works. You
And
know?
Dinner bell.
That's
Hell yeah.
so common, especially around here. I haven't really fished outside of Oregon quite a bit. I actually just did my first out of state trip in Wyoming this year. But I'm seeing a really common trend for Stillwater, is people don't think when you get in there that the trout will school up, but they do. And the funny thing is they don't all school up. you could have like 2 or 3 different schools, and in different areas. Everybody's thinking,
Right.
okay, we came in, yeah, maybe they're stocked, but everybody's gonna be in one big school. No, they will separate, find out who they like to hang out with. And it's just, it's kind of like I always tell my kids, it's kind of like high school. You got your jocks over there, you got your nerds over there, you got the quiet kids over here, you got that one big asshole that's hanging out in the corner over there.
Ends up being the
He's the
most
one of these
successful guy.
Yeah. And so, and it's kind of weird that that's how I've kind of really noticed, because about the last 3 years, I've really had to lean on Stillwater. And so I've really noticed that. So I'm really curious about the pyramid. I'm actually, I don't know, maybe I should just pack up and go one of these days.
Hey, I have
I
a
think you
question,
should.
a technical question. What size ladder are you taking? I'm looking at photos.
Gotta be
Looking
a
at photos.
10-footer.
One guy's got a 4-foot ladder. This guy's got a step stool.
I was
I
gonna
recognize
say,
this as a 6-foot ladder. What the hell?
I'm not even packing bags. I'm just packing a 24-foot ladder onto the plane.
Right.
Heck
Break it
yeah.
apart.
I
There
think
you
I have
go.
to pay for like
Problem-
oversized luggage maybe or something
The
like that.
problem is it's just an extension ladder, and he's got nothing to lean it against.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that might be
exactly.
an issue.
See, my
That's why you're
my
going.
redneck,
Yeah, right.
my redneck like thinking would be like, I'm gonna get 2 freaking 3-tier ladders, extension ladders, arch this sucker up, and I'm gonna be like, I don't know, 40 feet in the air. I'm gonna be able to
Stable.
tell exactly when that school comes through.
There
Drop
you
back
go.
down, throw my shit in, and then jump back up and just like recon the whole area.
Love it.
Use your drone to fly out your
There you
fly
go.
at just the right spot, drop it right in front.
That's the
Now
way
you're
to do it.
talking.
Yeah.
That's
Technical.
real fly fishing. I don't know what everyone's doing
Yeah,
on the
I
rivers.
was-
and shit.
Everybody needs to get their shit straight. I mean, duh.
Fly your fly out and drop it. I get it.
So
Well,
Lance,
that's
Now, you have a fishing license and a drone license now. Is that what you got to get?
Yeah, I'm
Yep.
licensed through the Colorado Parks and Wildlife as well as the FAA. So if you
Perfect.
need either of those,
good.
just
So
let me know.
hey, how did you like that test?
Hey, well, you know,
The
I didn't really
FAA is not
study
too
all
bad.
that hard, but you know, it's more or less like you read the brochure, you can pass the quiz kind of thing.
Now, are you rec or are you commercial?
Just recreational.
Yeah,
So
because
I
I think
basically, yeah.
I think
I just,
commercial you have to almost get your pilot's license.
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah, for
Wow.
a drone, it is like
Holy
stupid.
crap.
wow.
Yeah, there's a training place up here in BV, which is like, you know, half an hour north of where I live, and they make an insane amount of money from
It's
hosting
crazy.
drone test, you know, flights and all that kind of stuff. It's crazy.
Wow.
It is nutty the amount of money. If you can get your commercial license, it's a crazy amount of money you can get for doing that. My buddy does that, and he flies for like Netflix, and he flies these $10,000 red cameras running around
Oh,
on his
the
drone.
real estate agents, they can't get enough pilots.
Yeah,
All the,
Yeah.
yeah.
for
I
the
mean,
properties
there's
and homes
such a
and shit.
need out there
I
because
bet.
it's because it's so hard. The industry is so shorthanded on there, and so then Canada's even worse for flight anywhere up there. So a
Yep.
lot of people are freaking they're contracting the U.S. side to come up and fly their drones for them.
That's Canada, though.
Yeah.
Enough said. Well, Pyramid sounds like a good trip, Lance.
Yeah.
But-
Yeah, I'm
okay.
looking forward to it. I should have some good company, right, Dave?
I was. You know, it's up for debate. But
You fly in, you go to Lowe's, you buy a ladder. You go to Toys R Us, you buy a couple floaties so you can float it out there. Otherwise, you're carrying that ladder out there.
Oh, dude, just
you
go
tap
get
it to
a
the
big
leg so you
unicorn.
drag it out there.
That's awesome.
There's no seat on top, so you want to buy a little boat seat so you can screw it on the top of the
Yeah,
ladder so
there
you
you
have some place to sit.
Well,
And then you
you
need a
gotta bring the
basket with your
cooler
lunch.
out with you too.
Just-
Yeah,
Nice.
make sure it's a floating cooler because you don't want to drag, you don't carry this.
Dude, some kid
Yeah.
needs to sit out there with like 40 ladders and just rent them out for like
There you
$50
go.
a
That's
day.
what I'm
Wow.
thinking.
Yeah.
Good call. Yeah.
You would
Right,
make
just
an
like they do at the
insane amount of
beaches.
money.
Here's your umbrella, here's your ladder, here's
Yep.
your chair. You got it for
Lance-
2 hours, $80.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Do you take a lot of trips fishing, Lance, or just
Yeah, I
once in a
mean,
while?
It's so I kind of like view my fishing trips on 2 different levels, right? So I've got the daily excursions. Like I was telling you guys, I live like really close to the river. So I can get out for an hour before work and still make it home with 45 minutes to spare and have 3 fish in the basket. So
That's awesome.
the daily commute is never really viewed as like a fishing trip per se.
Sure.
I've been taking fishing trips for a while. There was a good little bit where I didn't really plan like specific fishing trips, and it was just kind of general travel abroad, enjoying that whole aspect of life for a little bit. But now that, you know, we're kind of settled in, I've found my comforts and like my new means of exploration. I think fishing trips kind of top that list for sure. So, you know,
So what would be your dream trip, unless you've already taken it? What would be your next trip?
What was your best?
Yeah.
It's tough because you know, I've been to Alaska, I've fished Alaska, I've fished
Nice.
Central America, the West. You know, I honestly think, you know, at this point, my wife and I have been sitting on this idea for a couple of years now, and I think it's hopefully coming to fruition next year. But we're actually going to go fly fish some of the small streams in Japan.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, try and target some of those species. They have like the Imago, the Yamame, the Ivana trout, and they're all just, you know, it's probably no different, or at least from what I've seen, it's no different than creeking out here in the West, right? But,
Yeah.
but I think it's the set and setting for that trip that's going to make it truly something else.
You gonna go visit the koi farms?
I would love to do a little bit of everything while we're out there. I mean, I'm not going to be fishing the koi farms.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to think that
Don't
those
say
things.
no until you're there, buddy.
Dude,
Yeah, right.
Oh, he can go fish it, but what it's you're looking at, I think a minimum for the babies are like 5,000,
Holy crap.
and then one of their fish over there sold, I think it was like 1.8 million
For a fish.
for a fish.
I didn't know that.
Yep, the koi is the most expensive fish ever sold,
Wow.
and because that's, I mean, it's just, and they were all wiped out. It's, if you're really interested, before you go, look at like the backstory of during the earthquake and stuff, of how they rebuilt it and all that. It's absolutely amazing, and it's just like so their interactions with fish over there, especially with koi, are just so like, there's so much passion in there, and so it's pretty cool.
Man, I'm
Yeah,
double thinking my life right now. Yeah. So, well, I was in Utah, right? I picked up fly fishing, and I lived in Utah at the time, and I was on the river one day, and it was crazy. I see what I thought was like a goldfish in the river, and it was kind of like just kind of perched up underneath this log. And the closer I get, I mean, I don't know what it was, like if it was a goldfish or a koi or whatever, but it kind of reminded me of that. And of course, I tossed a fly to it. I was like, nope, I'm out.
Yep.
Yeah, it's cool though.
They're super common. If you go to East Coast, New York, Tennessee, stuff like that, anywhere around cities, it's really common to see goldfish and koi in the rivers, and all, especially in
like people flushing them or something,
throwing them out, and so they're just like either too big or just they don't expect anything about it. But yeah, some of them make through the system. A lot of still waters, especially when I was in upstate New York. On base, we had the biggest goldfish I've ever seen in my life, and then a couple kois in the lakes that we fished that somebody threw out there and stuff.
Crazy.
So it's crazy.
Why Japan? Have either of you ever been there, or
No, we've never been to Japan, and honestly, I think it was just kind of born out of. So a little bit of backstory here, right? When my wife and I started fly fishing, like small stream fishing was our go-to, hands down, right? Because that's honestly where we could catch fish. We didn't really know how to fish rivers and stuff, so we instead chose to find the dummies,
right?
And just like there was such a strong passion and connection for getting outside and creating these memories together, and like that's a big foundation of my wife and I's, like, you know, relationship, right? And so when I was blogging for Fish West a couple of years ago, I was looking into a couple different like destination fly fishing spots, right? And as I was peeking around, it just kind of like popped into my head, like, does Japan fly fish well? Like, what's the water like out there? And so we did a little bit of research. We watched some YouTube videos, did some reading, and everyone was like, Japan is small stream heaven if you're really trying to catch some really cool fish. So I think that's what it is. It's like a return to the foundation of how we enjoyed fly fishing together. And yeah, I think, you know, we like to travel a lot when we can. And the past couple of years have been kind of difficult outside of COVID, right? Just like settling down in life and creating that foundation. So going back to that idea, I feel would be kind of like a closure on that chapter and opening up the next destination, wherever that may be.
Very cool.
So are you gonna go traditional, or are you gonna go Tenkara, or are you gonna stay with your actual fly rod?
I think I'm gonna go out with glass. I think a glass 3-weight is just my bread and butter for small
Awesome.
streams. But I don't know if I can build a bamboo rod prior to heading out that way. That would be pretty sweet. The bamboo blanks are, obviously pretty expensive and for good reason. But
Yeah.
I think that would be pretty sweet to fish Japan on bamboo.
That'd be awesome. I got a buddy that builds them here next town over from me, and it's just he was just telling me the prices that he was doing, and he goes, "Yeah, I undercut some guys so I can get more business." I'm like, "If you undercut that price, holy crap! I mean, they're expensive." And
They are.
So
You got to check into Japan. They may have some nice rods there too. See what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
these
I
are beautiful
possibility.
fish. The trout over there are absolutely gorgeous, and it's
Mhm.
just like I was just looking them up because I was like, I wonder what's over there, like what's kind of. But man, I mean, it's just they kind of reminded me. A few of them kind of remind me of the Salmon River cutthroat. Just that beautiful pastel color and the marks, and it's just like, I bet it's absolutely gorgeous over there, man. It's just because just the heritage and how everybody loves that area and
Yeah.
wants to keep it natural, and I bet it looks really cool.
Yeah, I think that's, another big draw for us is like just the lifestyle and cultural experience of a trip like that would be truly incredible. So it's got a couple high points on our list as to why we want to go.
Sounds
But
like an
I think
awesome trip.
yeah, whenever we can make that come to fruition, hopefully we can do that sooner than later.
That'd be awesome.
So you talked about building a bamboo rod. You make rods?
I do. Well, I guess I shouldn't say I'm like a rod builder, even though that's kind of like the most common term for it. But I wrap rods. I make all of the components, and yeah, I build fly rods for a lack of better terms. So that process usually starts out with just getting the fly rod blank, which is more or less just a stick. And
Oh yeah.
from there you get a bunch of epoxy, some tape, some chewing gum, and maybe a staple or two. to fix yourself a fly rod.
So with
Sounds pretty technical. I don't know.
with that, I mean, it's just like I'm actually in the middle of building a SAGS Euro rod and
Nice.
stuff like that. Are it for your components, or is there any? I mean, anybody you want to shout out? Because I've been running through. We ran through like Pack Bay and Mud Hole and all that. Is it somebody that wants to get, if they're listening, wants to get into that, be like a hobbyist and build rods? I mean, who I mean, if you want to give away a little trade, there's really not a lot of trade secrets, but who would you recommend on your side that's you built a few rods and understand them with their aspect?
Yeah, so the company that I've built probably the most fly rods with, and for the longest, has been Blue Halo, based out of Utah.
Yep,
Courtney
we know them.
Boyce.
We know Courtney pretty good. Me and Ryan too.
Yeah, I mean, he's the man. He's great.
Hey, he's a great guy.
Yeah. So I've built a lot of rods on his blanks, anything from like a 3-weight up to, I think the biggest one I've done is a 7 or 8-weight. But I mean, his rods go from 3-weight up to 12 on the Zen glass.
Yeah.
Which, a couple of my buddies want, at least one of my buddies down in Costa Rica fishes with one of his 12 weights and bags.
Wow.
Yeah. I love even the heavy. I've got a 7-weight over there of his, and I love how it handles. I'm not a huge glass guy, to be honest.
Sure.
It's a little too slow for me.
Yeah, it's slow for sure.
And you gotta really get used to it. And I'm more of a just I don't want to spend time out of the water.
Right.
I can't catch fish. So my theory is get it up and get it back in the water back as fast as you can. And it's just
There
like
you go.
and so glass was a little frustrating for me because I'd try to rip it out too fast and then launch it, and then you're like, oh shit, I can't move this fast doing this. And so and now do you use all of his components? I mean, do you use all of his stuff from it? Like, does he have like a kit like Mudhole? Does he have like a kit you can just order and freaking, or is he a specific only to people that have been building for a while?
He does have all the components on the website, I think, except for his snake guides.
Yeah.
So he's got
That's Mike's stuff.
Yeah. So he's got handles on there. He's got reel seats. He's got pretty much everything you need. And when it comes to snake guides, I mean, there's a ton of different brands. The ones that I've used most often are called American Tackle. And they have this really nice black finish that I think goes well on like basically any rod. So that's usually like my go-to if someone asks me to build them a rod and they're not too picky on it, then I usually offer up a Blue Halo just because of that experience too. Like, as you were saying, Rob, like I have a 7-weight in my car for streamers. That's a Blue Halo blank. And that is one of my, if not the favorite rod that I own, just because I can sit either in the boat or on the bank. I can rip roll casts with it like nobody's business.
Yeah.
And it can put the heat on some fish. Like they're surprisingly sturdy. And I don't think a lot of people really relate fiberglass to some of these bigger weight rods, but they hold up very well.
I think it's because of the back history. It's like people haven't really caught up that fiberglass has evolved since Fenwick in like the 70s and 60s, and all that. And it's just like people look at it like, oh, it's just cheesy. It's gonna be like a board. No, I mean fiberglass. I love the feel of glass. I mean, you can feel the rocks, you can feel all this, and another downfall for me being in the Pacific Northwest, we have big water. So anything, I really can't throw anything less than 9 feet because I mean my preferred is a 10-foot rod. 10 6-weight would be perfect. And so it was that was another kind of downfall, especially standing on the side of the river, just getting out there. I mean, because it's always brush behind you. We don't have a lot of open shit. We have big ass trees. And so I was catching more trees than I was freaking being in the water.
Have you talked to Blue Halo about that at all? Is anybody making longer rods out of fiberglass nowadays?
Yeah, the longest fiberglass rod I've seen was a 9-foot rod. I don't think you could go much larger than 9 feet. And even at that point, I'm not even sure if, the 9-foot length might be too slow, because I think the longer you've got your rod, the longer you get, the more oomph you have to put into it. And I wonder if it would just be kind of wet noodle at that point.
And that makes you wonder. It's just like if they get out 10 feet on a glass, that base is going to have to be so stiff to be able to get the movement. Your tip's going to be, and you're going to feel fucking everything.
Right.
But
well,
it's going to be a rock.
And the cool thing that Courtney did was he put together those Liger series.
The hybrids.
Yeah.
That was very impressive.
4-piece rod. The first 3 pieces are carbon graphite and tip sections fiberglass. I think that's genius.
I was wondering if somebody was going to do that, because before I started fly fishing in 2015, before that, when I was stationed up in New York, I was really big into chasing like pike and walleye. I was predator fishing. Ugly Stick did that about, I would say, over 10 years ago. They had a glass tip integrated into the tips of their rod. And it was amazing. And so then when I heard Courtney was doing it, I think he fired it off last year or the year before. It was right before COVID hit.
Yep.
I was like, I might have to transfer back over because it's amazing. You get the faster reaction, but then you get the sensitivity of it, and it's a amazing blend. And I give him mad props for doing that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the presentation falls in that fiberglass tip too, right? So when you're fishing a tiny 3-weight, you can present that fly so delicately. Yeah. And I think it's just a really innovative way to kind of combine the power that you need to haul a fly out there, and also the presentation and how that fly is going to sit in front of the fish. And so props to Blue Halo for sure. Courtney does a great job. I will happily fish one of his rods any day.
Oh, heck yeah. And so
are you just building for friends or buddies, or do you have a website where you sell your rods, or how's that work?
So this kind of requires a little bit of backstory too, right? But so Pescavida is the name that I use on YouTube, and that's my website as well, pescavida.net. But I started out with the Pescavida name as, rod building, right? And so a lot of my early days, I used to just go straight through Instagram. People would reach out, and, building rods is pretty time consuming, and it's not exactly something that you get to really flex that markup on all that much, right? Like it takes 10, 12 hours to build a rod, not including the drying time. and what you're putting into it is kind of what you expect to get out, right? But
Right.
so at this point, I really just kind of build mostly for friends and family, even though that friends and family network is growing daily. So it's, I mean, it keeps me busy for sure. I would like to, at some point, get up a page on my website about what all goes into building a custom rod. And if I had the time to do so, I would definitely do it a lot more. But you know, for now, it's like I also really want to enjoy building the rod. I don't want to feel forced to get it out the door to someone who has a trip coming up the next week or whatever.
Yeah,
right?
you still want that
Sure.
enjoyment and from like the passion of. I'm the same way. I build. Actually, I built Dave, and I built this one. I built custom flags and do custom carving on there.
Yeah.
And so I'm the same way. I just everything's too word of mouth. Everybody's just like, and then a lot of people don't realize, especially when it comes to a skill set like this, they look at you like, well, what do you mean it's going to cost me this much? Well, time is money. I mean, this isn't. I don't just walk back here and freaking shit something on a piece of board and then hand it to you. And it's just like, I mean, this flag alone took 16 hours to carve. And it's just like, and you turn around and you look at those rods. I mean, it takes time to wrap. It takes time to line up, find the spine, get everything on there. And the drying time on top of that is out of your control. I mean, you can figure out what kind of epoxies or stuff like that. And then all that. And then it's just like, people don't understand. It's not like Legos. You can't just click this shit together and throw it out the door and stuff. So, but I'm the same way. It's just like, I don't ever want anything that I do passion wise, like fly tying or woodworking, to ever feel like it's become a job, because I've always told myself, if it ever feels like it's become a job, I'm stopping it right there, taking 2 steps back and figure out what I can do to get back into that lane.
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important things when this isn't your main lifestyle or choice of livelihood, right? Is I don't want to burn myself out on making really cool rods. And you know, what you were saying was very true about the time. And I also turn my own handles, I'll turn my own fighting butts. So that's another, you know, good chunk of time that goes into every rod.
Yeah.
But what do they say? Good work ain't cheap and cheap work ain't good. So
exactly, 100%.
Yeah.
That sums it up for sure.
Yeah.
And that's almost a lost cause nowadays. I mean, a skill set is like, people look at it like, okay, what skill set do you have? And like nowadays, I mean, people look at it like, what do you mean skill set? Just go to the store and buy it. What?
Yeah.
Or order it on Amazon.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, I think
and
that's
there's a very interesting kind of audience that's into making custom rods too, right? I mean, for a majority of people who ask me to make them a custom rod, I say, if warranty or any sort of service on that rod is a priority to you, then I'm not going to build you a rod.
Yeah.
I can't pump out rods like RL Winston or Sage. Right?
Well, and you look at it nowadays, it's just like, it's kind of funny how my flags and your rods are kind of the same.
Yeah.
We are doing a passion in a saturated field right now. Because everybody and their brother is like, I'm a fucking rod builder. Like, oh yeah. And then if you look it up on the market right now, everybody and their brother is a flag builder. It's just like, you got to find that little niche of what makes you different. Well, like you take the time. It's like, yeah, it's going to take a little longer to get my rod. I can't just hand you one off the shelf, but I am going to custom and personally turn your stuff for you, put your fighting butt, your handles, and all this, and I'm going to go through and I'm going to touch every single product on here and make sure that it fits the blank that we decided to go with. And it's just like, and people don't understand that takes time, that takes effort, and and that's what I love about it. It's just like, every single rod, nothing's the same across the board. You can make the same rod 50 times, but each one's going to be a little bit different. And it's just like, it's not that production line. And with it being not being that production line, people need to understand that. It's like, yeah, you want a rod. You thought that rod looked awesome. Well, this is how long it took to build that rod. So you need to understand this. And it's just like, and I'm building this for you. The only warranty that's gonna be coming with this is the blank warranty from the company.
Exactly.
Good luck, guys.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Rob, because So I got a couple as well. You know, I love my halos, and Courtney makes some awesome colors, like his colors off the bat. You know, and I mean these things, you know, like they're like lightsabers out on the river. It's awesome.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
they really are. They glow.
Yep. And having especially building them yourselves, I think personally glass really brings out those colors in those rods. And then, you know, you're starting to put wraps together and stuff like that. What would you say your favorite one you've done? What's your favorite color scheme that you built somewhere?
That's a tough one to say, but I mean, just for time's sake, rather than running through every single one I've built, you know, it was what was it? The start of this year, I had reached out to Chris Pizzell, who's Stash Wax on Instagram.
Yep.
And he makes those cool fish with the chubby stickers and all that, right?
Yeah.
And I reached out to him, and we were just kind of, you know, shooting the shit back and forth, and I let it slip that I was building rods at the time, and he was like, well, it just so happens I'm in the market too. So we really worked hard on finding a cool color combination that he really enjoyed, that I really enjoyed putting together for him, and that rod is probably one of my favorites. It's I think it's the jade color from Blue Halo, so it's kind of
nice.
that minty green.
Yep.
And I paired that with black and white accents, and poured some acrylic inlays for the handle. It turned out so good. So that one was probably my favorite for right now, but I've got a couple that I'm working on right now that could blow that one out of the waters.
Woo! Can't wait to see that.
That's such the fun part of custom builds. It's just like it's whether there's so much stuff you can do with them, and it's just like and each time it sounds like you're like me. Each time you try to do something a little better and something a little more out of your comfort zone to try to get better, and you're like, holy shit, that was awesome. I can't believe I did that.
Pretty much.
So
Exactly.
I've seen that rod of Chris's. That it is a piece of work for sure.
Yeah,
nice work.
That one received some love. That's
sure. Yeah.
And he fishes that rod well. I mean, he was just telling me a couple months ago when he first started fishing it, like how drastically different fishing glass is.
That's his first glass rod, right?
Yeah, I think so. And it's such a slow way of fishing, but I think everyone kind of needs to experience that.
Yeah.
Rather than the quick hits, the fast takes and this and that. Like being able to really dial in your presentation, your precision and accuracy with your casts. I think a lot of that you can practice better on a glass rod.
Oh, 100%.
Exactly.
All my vets that we kick off to teach casting, I hand them glass because it's so much. It forces them, and I always make sure that and always tell my guys too is when don't get complacent, because it's super easy to get complacent on the water. And I love that the glass forces you to slow down, because then when it slows you down, you start looking around. So a lot of times it's not all about the looking at the water or catching the fish. It's about the scenery, what's around you, what's going on. And it's like head on a swivel. It goes just like being in combat. Head on a swivel. Look for those rising fish and look for the areas around you. Look for shades. Enjoy the view. So the glass kind of forces you to do that. It forces you to take a step back and like, oh yeah, shit, this is gorgeous.
It kind of brings it all together.
I love that perspective for sure.
So
we all have big fish stories. What about you? You got a big fish story you tell everybody, or just your wife, or family that doesn't understand fishing? You know, that guy at the supermarket. Hey, I got something to tell you. Listen to that. What is your big fish story?
Well, let's see. I could tell my biggest fish story, or I could tell the story of like my most sought after fish and just picking up one of those like a couple weeks back. So I'll leave that to you guys.
Your choice. Which one's more entertaining? We're here for entertaining. So.
All right.
Entertain us.
So back in 2017, when I was still in college, I was working at the Ace Hardware, and everyone that I worked with, they were all anglers, and they loved getting out, and they were big creeking guys too, you know, a lot of 3-weight action. And one day we were all standing around at opening, and my buddy shows me this picture of this fish. And he's like, check it out, my buddy caught this. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, what is that, right? And he's like, it's a golden trout from Colorado, right? And And I was like, whoa, I've never known what a golden trout was, but like there's that instant allure of gold and like, oh, big treasure.
Yep.
Right.
And so I asked him, I was like, where, and this is back in my naive days when I thought
where'd you catch
this kind of information out. But I was like, where'd he catch that? And he was like, I can't tell you. And I was like, that's fair. So cue the hours of Googling and trying to find maps and scanning the background of people's pictures and blog posts to see if I could identify the mountains and maybe the lake, right? Like some of that super in-depth kind of just complete sleuthing around trying to figure out where I could catch a golden trout.
Right.
So I couldn't tell you how long it took me to find this one map that I found online. And it's still out there. I check back on it every now and again, but it showed that a couple of lakes, actually really close to where I live now, had some goldens in them. And so 2018 was my first trip out, and I went up to this creek that was a feeder out of this alpine lake. And I identified that was indeed where my buddy's golden picture was from. And so I fished this super skinny water. I'm talking like maybe 1.5 feet wide at its width. And I fished all day, nothing but cuts. And I was so bummed. I was like, I figured I'd have like 10 goldens in the bag when I first outing. So unfortunately, that wasn't the case. And then my wife and I in 2019, right before our wedding, hiked up to another alpine lake that I identified that had goldens in it. And again, it was just a complete cutthroat day. And I'm saying this like it's a bad day.
Yeah, right. That's so terrible.
Yeah. Oh, it was worse. Right? But that second time I did see a golden trout. We were standing at the inlet to the lake, and I saw one cruising that was clearly different than the rest of the cuts that were coming up and surfacing. So I instilled a personal vendetta against that one golden and kept trying. And I actually went up to that lake another time last summer with a bunch of my buddies, and we were dead set. I was like, this is the time I'm catching a golden. So we get up to the alpine, fish for an hour, and it rains until we pack up and left a day early the next day. Right? It was nonstop rain. It was cold. The fish weren't even biting. So again, another X on the golden trials, right? So again, earlier this year, I went out with one of my buddies back to that very first spot in hopes of getting to the lake that fed that creek. We got up there and there was no sign of fish. And I kind of expected it because I was chatting with the guys at the fly shop, and they were like, yeah, that lake was freeze killed a couple of years ago and they haven't stocked it again. I was like, no, you're lying. That's some, because you never know if you're supposed to take them seriously or not. Like that could be the best place to find them.
Right.
So 5 trips for goldens, and I couldn't find one. So again, last weekend, it was like the last kind of alpine weekend for me. And I was like, Jordan, we got to get back up into the alpine. We have to catch golden trout. Like this is getting ridiculous, right? So we finally get up there, and Jordan's got one of those little pack rafts, and there's an island on the lake that we were fishing. So we pack rafted out to the middle of the island, thinking this is definitely going to improve our chances of catching a golden. If we put ourselves literally in the middle of the lake, I don't see how they could avoid it. And I'm starting to think to myself, I'm like, I wonder if I should go traditional flies or if I should do something really stupid. So I put on a sink tip line, attached like a size 10 slump buster, and then from the back of that, I was dangling off a wiggle worm, like a San Juan worm.
Yeah.
Dang.
Going all dirty.
The
ugliest rig.
You gotta take a shower, bro.
Some states
honestly,
that's outlawed. You can't do that in some states.
I like hesitate to tell that to people because I'm like, do I
You
want
should.
people to know, right? So good thing I just put it out there for everyone.
Yeah.
Nobody's listening right now.
And there'll be a link. There'll be a link to the lake also. Just so
Yeah, exactly.
The coordinates will be
Exact
posted
coordinates,
later.
But that stupid monstrosity of a rig is what caught my first golden. So
There you go.
Wow.
What
10
part?
minutes of
You
fishing
had enough
that,
stuff
and
on here.
yeah, and the thing, I can't tell if I'm more ashamed of the fact that I was casting like a streamer San Juan worm thing, right? Or the fact that out of every single fly in my fly box, the first golden I caught was on a San Juan worm.
Right.
It
I don't know, that
happens.
kind of cuts deep, right? You would think you'd pull it out on some purist dry fly pattern or something that's
Exactly.
so incredibly trout pure. But so
That is
that's the
awesome.
story of that's my golden story. That one's been brewing for the past like 4 years now, and I'm glad I can finally tell it with an ending.
Oh,
Heck
yeah.
yeah. Congratulations.
Congrats, man. I'm glad
That
you
is
got
very
They do
cool.
stock the gold through Colorado, right? They're stocked.
Yeah, so the 70s and 80s were prime times for when they were doing some golden stocking, and they tapered it off for a while because the populations weren't doing too well, and they were trying to restore native cutthroat habitat. But the lake that we went to, from what I've heard, gets stocked like every 2 or 3 years with fingerling goldens. And then CPW actually just published a very easily Googleable kind of issue on where to find goldens in Rocky Mountain National Park now. So yeah, don't come to my lake. Go to the ones that they're publicizing.
I've caught them twice in 2 different locations in Colorado, and they were in streams. They weren't lakes; they were streams.
Yeah, I've heard that the stream population still exists. So that's really cool to hear. It's
cool.
hard fishing though. You got to get back there. Like I know there's a couple of places in Colorado where you can catch them a little bit easier, but going back to that setting of why are you outside and why are you fishing and taking the time to enjoy your surroundings, I'm like, I can't pull a golden trout out of a puddle in front of the Dick's Sporting Goods, right? Like, you need to have the full experience.
Exactly.
I think we nailed it.
Unless that's the only way to catch one, then you would.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It was the guys from Dick's that told them to go out there. You just
right.
parking lot. You don't need GPS. Just go out across the street.
Yeah,
right there.
You've got 4 individual ponds: your goldens, your Cuddy rain browns, your rain brooks, and all your other fish.
Yep.
Good luck. Get out of here.
Yeah.
So once you figured out that deadly combo, did you end up just slaying them? You just kept catching them one after another, or what?
It was wild. So that rig worked for the morning time, and there wasn't any action on the topwater. So we fished that for a little bit, and we had a couple of takes, but we didn't bring anything into the net until the kind of like mid-morning hatches started. And then we put on dry droppers, and they were crushing dries, which was mind-blowing to me.
Awesome.
Because, you never go from a 20-foot San Juan worm streamer combo to dries in like 15 minutes. But yeah, it felt good to switch it up and see them taking both subsurface and surface flies.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
This is a good one.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
That
probably
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's probably my proudest fishing story I've got today. Let's wait till I get back from Pyramid and we'll see if that gets any better. But
there you go.
Yeah, I want photos, not of the fish, of the ladder.
Yeah.
The ladder looks
Of
like.
you falling off the ladder. That's what I want to see.
Yep.
Get a bunch of "I'm a huge fly fisherman" stickers slapped all over the ladder.
Yeah, there you
go.
My cast rod was broken, so I'm using the dumb fly rod. Yeah, there you go.
Go back to Ace Hardware and find some of those big red and white bobbers. The ones that you use for like musky fishing stuff.
Cool. So that kind of reminds me of let's talk about the most embarrassing moment that you had, other than your streamer San Juan thing. What's the most embarrassing moment you've had on the water?
Hey, it worked.
You
it's
set
not
the
that
bar pretty
embarrassing.
high already.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely no professional on the river, and I take pride in my ridiculousness and trying to stay humble about it. I think all of us as anglers kind of have that disposition of we all kind of suck at this, but we're having a great time about it, right?
Definitely.
Geez, probably my most embarrassing story, at least from recently. I was out float fishing with a couple of the guides here in the Arkansas Valley, Eric Smith and Tanner Barbeau of upriver fishing. And I had been bugging Tanner about getting out. I really wanted to go float fish. I'm making this big stink. And he's like, yeah, let's go. We'll run one of the stretches that's a little bit upriver from kind of where we are. And he was like, and my buddy Eric's coming. I was like, oh, sick. Okay, cool. It's going to be a full boat. We'll have some good time, some good chat. And we get to the boat ramp and I'm like, hey, Eric, I'm Lance. Great to meet you. And he's like, yeah, my name's Eric and blah, blah, blah. And for whatever reason, like that little switch inside my head flipped, and I was like, so this guy's name is definitely Evan. And I am so sure about this. Right. And so like literally he's staring at me saying, I'm Eric, and it goes in as I'm Evan. And I'm like, so, you know, we go about fishing, I don't know, probably 2-3 hours into the float of me calling him Evan. He's like, by the way, man, my name's Eric. And I'm like, oh. And I'm like trying to make friends out here, you know. I'm like, I'm not trying to just fish and like take pictures. Like I want to, you know, I don't want to be that guy, but I was being that guy for like 3 hours. To the point, you know, where even they were like saying stuff behind me, like, "Did he just call you Evan again?" And I'm just totally tuned out to it, right? So, you know, to Eric out there, if you're listening, man, I apologize. And to anyone whose name is Evan out there, don't be surprised if I call you Eric, I guess.
Oh my God.
Yeah, my
It
niece
was
will be
just one
upset
of
with
those
that.
like, it was just one of those jabs, man. I was like, felt good.
That is hilarious.
Way to be that guy.
Yeah, I
Right?
mean, we still boated fish and were able to overcome our issues while on the boat. So.
You're like, Evan, give me your rod. I'm going to rig you up a slump buster squirmy combo. I will put you on
choice,
fish.
Evan. Come on now.
That's right.
That's
That's
awesome.
awesome, man.
Did you take your raft? You have a raft too, right?
I do have a raft. I've got a big old 14-foot Saturn raft.
Hell yeah.
Barely legal to float on the river, it seems, but you know, she rides. No, we took I almost called him Evan again. We took Eric's raft.
Evan's raft.
And yeah, he did a great job of rowing. He's got a really sweet setup, but our boat, you know, we were actually going to get it fitted with lean bars and the seats and all of that, but we ended up buying a house instead this summer, so that kind of got put on the back burner. But we still got out. I probably float fished 8 times this summer.
Right on.
The majority of those times were me rowing and screaming at my friends about how terrible of a job they're doing at fishing. But
what true friends are for.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, someone's got to take the captain's seat, right? So,
heck yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I got out on a couple of floats. One time on the Colorado River with a big old gang of really awesome folks, and yeah, it was just cool, man. Hopefully, you know, next year we'll make sure no one falls out of the boat without lean bars. That's kind of been it's like
rule number one.
They tell people on my boat. It's like number one, no bananas on the boat. Number 2, stay in the boat because there are no lean bars.
Yeah. Gary
Unless
knows
you
a
bring
little bit.
bananas on the boat, then you're going swimming.
Gary knows a little bit about falling out of a
No,
boat.
wait a minute. I'm not the only one that's dropped out of a
Gary
boat
and
this
Dave
year.
both know
Dave,
about
yeah,
falling
Dave.
out of a boat. All right.
We got tired of the shit. We got out. We just
Nobody
didn't tell
told me
anybody.
that rule until it was after the fact. All right.
Yeah, Dave
To my
slipped on the banana.
defense-
That's how he ended up out of
Yeah,
his boat.
exactly. I slipped on my banana and fell on.
Yeah, it was terrible. And I did mine in January, you know, when it was 22 outside. The
That's
water was
warm.
warmer than the air.
Yeah.
It was cool. It was good times.
If you're gonna do it good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, it's real nice when you fall out and you've got your waders conveniently on too. And
Oh yeah.
Well, actually, that saved me from being wet all the way through. So
Yeah.
you get the belt on the outside.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. Everybody forgets to put the belt on. It's like
Right, the
wear
outside.
waders, wear the belt. It will save
The
you. I
outside
promise.
belt, exactly. That's what does a couple things. Not
Yeah.
only doesn't allow your waders to fill up, but keeps the water from getting into your lower extremities, and freezing
Yeah.
all the boys. But then you
Well,
need to have some good friends, and I didn't have any on this trip, right, Dave?
Yeah, well, you thought you did, but we found out you did.
Boy, drop off of one boat, now you know who your friends are.
Yeah,
Not him, not him.
Nope. Oh
So
well.
Lance, you seem very well versed. Sounds like you and your wife get to travel around a lot, do some fishing, in all sorts of areas, both here and abroad, which is awesome, man. A lot of people don't get that opportunity. So, knowing what you know today about fly fishing, if you could go back to your younger self when you first picked up that fly rod, is there anything that you would tell yourself back then?
Another great question for sure. I think knowing that fly fishing remains safe kind of within my hobby and passion side, more so than my like living and livelihood and career side. I would definitely tell myself to not put down the fly rod in my teen years. I was busy doing teenager stuff and not fishing so much, but
You want to
really just,
elaborate
like,
on that?
That could be another
well,
show. Maybe we
long
have
story short, boys
Okay.
become men, right? That's
Yep.
just how it goes.
So that's how you met your wife.
But I think the biggest thing is, like, fly fishing has really introduced me to a lot of cool people. I mean, Dave is not on that list, but
Yeah, we all agree.
understandable. That's
100%.
totally understandable.
no,
Can't argue that.
Right.
Not even Dave.
Nope.
But it really has introduced me to some awesome people. Like, Dave and I first met on the Green River, and what a cool place to meet someone who's just so on your level, and someone that you can, BS back and forth with and set up really cool trips with too. Like, that's a really, really cool thing to be able to say, especially at this time in everyone's life, right? When we're kind of, the world seems to be at ends to whatever extent, and I think everyone's feeling the pressure of, like, simply existing. So having those vices and those friendships and those relationships through fly fishing has become pivotal for sure in my life, and just, like, who I really enjoy being around, and just kind of, like, deeper than that, who are the people helping me become my best self as well. So a lot of big props to all my fishing friends out there. But in terms of, like, the younger years and what it would have meant for me to continue with fishing, I think it could have set me up on a completely different path. So I guess I would just say, take it naturally and let it come with what it is for you too. I mean, I have some friends that occasionally like to fish. I fish hard, right? I'm sure all of us here do. And there's everyone in between. So not taking it too seriously if you don't have to is a great piece of advice from my current self, hopefully to my 10 years self down the road.
Yeah.
So
that
yeah,
down.
I think, the friendships and just allowing it to be what it was really helped me get from those younger years of, like, literally throwing the stick in the lake because I'm fed up with not catching any carp to, okay, I'm staring at a riffle. I can see 3 different spots where a fish is going to be. And yeah. I think that's what I would say to my younger self is keep it cool and enjoy the ride.
Nice.
That is awesome advice.
Well
It
said,
makes
man.
me wonder too if somebody inspired you or got you into fly fishing. What did that look like?
So when I was young, I used to go spin fishing with my grandpa a lot. And we used to just go down to, like, the pond in front of the library and pick out bluegills. But it was never anything too crazy, but I love fishing. I mean, it was time I got to spend with my grandpa, and just fishing itself is really fun when you're young.
Yep.
And then my dad bought me my first fly rod. I think I was like 9 or 10. And
Wow.
he also got me a fly tying kit too. You should see some of the monstrosities I was talking about. Unbelievable.
I have. They're on your website, right?
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Did
Oh,
you
no.
catch any fish with it?
Yeah.
I honestly don't have any memories of catching any fish on the fly, but I just thought it was so much fun to go out and fly fish, right? And it was the same scenario. Like, we would go sometimes into town and just pop around at some of the ponds, but every now and again we would make it out into the mountains and try trout fishing. Yeah, I don't know. It's a combination definitely of, like, the family input from my younger years that has inspired me and has kept me close to fishing. But, honestly, just watching everyone else enjoy fishing is another really big motivating factor, or it's something I hold in high regards, right? Of seeing people's, like, genuine reactions when they first catch a fish and they're handling it well, and, like, the entire story of what that is. I find a lot of inspiration in that too. Like, I can go out and bag 10 fish and not think twice about it, but you take someone out who's never really fished and they catch one 4-inch brook trout, and it's a game changer, right?
Hooting and hollering. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I think everyone, whether it be Instagram or YouTube or just, actually getting together in person, everyone around me has that really awesome humbleness that I guess I inherently pick up on. And I find that to be super inspirational too.
Heck yeah.
Love it.
That's what it's all about, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not always just about the fish or how big it is or, anything like that. I think the camaraderie and the folks that you find along the way, and the really good intrinsic feelings that you gain from those moments, I think those speak a lot about who we are as people, for sure.
Oh, 100%.
Definitely.
I agree with that. But with that, Lance, I really appreciate you jumping on. And
I appreciate hanging out with you guys. It's been great.
And all that.
Definitely.
And you've had some awesome stories. And then if you ever make it to Oregon, man, let me know. I'd love to take you fishing.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's on the list for sure. I mean, it may not be Japan, but it's probably close.
I feel you.
Yeah, I really appreciate all your guys' time. It's been great chatting, and I hope everyone has a great start of fall too on the water. It's looking to be a good season.
Oh yeah. Cool. Well, we've been chatting with Lance, and this is It's Set You Free Outdoors podcast. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Lance.
Thanks, guys.
Recording stop.